Steve Sweeney here with Headwaters for Heroes. We're coming to you with another series of our podcast. We're here at Station on 290 here in Harper, Texas for this series, and we're going to be moving around the state doing this from time to time. We're lucky enough we've got one of the choppers from Orange County Chopper here in our background. It's even got the engraving of Paul Tuttle Sr. on it, so I'm told it's his bike. If you ever watch American Chopper, you've probably seen this bike. I'm here today with Jacob Haverda and Clay Carver, and both of them are our pro staff, but more importantly, both Jacob and Clay served our great nation, and both served in Iraq. So we're going to talk about Iraq. We're going to talk about them as pro staff and try to have a little fun with this. Jacob, tell us, where did you serve, what unit, all that good stuff.
So joined the military in 99. Served Iraq, got there in 03 to 04. Let's see, we were in Al-Nasiriyah, which was the south part. I was a transportation unit. We ran supplies from Al-Nasiriyah into Baghdad and back and forth for 6 months out of our rotation. The last couple months we were down in Kuwait doing details down there. Good time.
How about you, Clay? Tell us a little bit about your service.
Well, I joined in January '01. Did my basic training in AIT at Fort Benning, Georgia. All of my station time was at Fort Hood with the 1st Cav. We made our first deployment in '03. Let's see, we went to Salter City, Iraq, spent a year there, and came back, did some more train up, and in '06 we went back for another round and went to Bakuba, Iraq, which is just outside of Salter City. That's where I cut my trip short.
And by cutting your trip short, that's where you earned your Purple Heart.
That's right. I was there for about a month and a half. We went the 1st of October, and I believe it was 2 days after Thanksgiving I got nailed. So
we're going to talk about that getting nailed in just a little bit, because there's a funny story behind that. You and I were talking the other night, and it was a story I hadn't heard you tell before. And that's one of the great things about this organization. You know, once the veterans like yourselves kind of just get relaxed and open up, you hear some incredible stories, and how you can find humor in the middle of battle is so impressive. Jacob, tell us a little bit about some of what y'all saw and what you were doing in Iraq.
With all of our stuff was mainly just pushing supplies. Supplies came from us from Kuwait into Al-Nasiriyah, and then we took the supplies from there and pushed them up into Iraq, into Baghdad. A lot of that stuff was just convoy times on the road. It used to be, it was MSR Tampa at that time. Back in the Gulf War, that was Highway 1?
I believe that was
Yeah,
what it was.
Highway 1. So we ran that road a lot, you know, and the worst part about seeing a lot was people back home talking about how bad it was, but when we were actually there interacting with the civilians and kids, you know, you see that, the appreciation. So I think that's where a lot of the media stuff comes in, and it tries to make us side one way or the other when it's really not the truth. And by being there, I saw a difference in the country and the people being so appreciative. And you do have the bad guys in there that's everywhere.
Now you're saying they're appreciative. So we know that they were under Saddam Hussein. What did you learn through the people there as far as, you know, what was it like? Were you able to ever get an idea of what it was like living there underneath that?
No, you never did, but you can just imagine seeing houses out in the middle of nowhere, no electricity or anything, but then you go into Saddam's areas and it was plush green, awesome electricity everywhere for those guys. But it was a very, you know, people outside, they couldn't live a regular life. They were lived hunkered down and scared in terror.
Wow. You know, we've heard a lot of stories over the years about Saddam Hussein and that regime and the way they treated people. And if you spoke out, you typically didn't live, and the brutality of what went on. Clay, when y'all were in there and y'all were in the fight, did any of that come to your mind? Was any of that a thought of, we're here to liberate, and boy, this guy was a piece of garbage, and man, we're making the things right? Or what went through your mind?
Well, that's a real good question. Whenever we were packing up to leave, I was under But my entire mentality and the vast majority of everybody that was with me was, we're coming over here, we're going to help these people out, we're going to give them a fresh start and let them, have an honest chance at starting a new life and community. My first trip, we hadn't even made it to Solder City yet. We were driving through Baghdad, and this was back whenever we didn't have any armor. We drove through Baghdad with no doors and no roofs. But we're going through there, and the son of a bitches shot at me. We're coming there to help them out, to do everything that we can to give them a fresh start, and then it's kind of like spitting in your face.
Yeah.
So it took a few months of some pretty hard fighting, but once we did take out the next higher ups, once they got Saddam out, in our area you had Muqtada al-Sadr and his militia, the Mahdi militia. They was just as bad, but the others, I don't remember if it's Sunni or Shia, but they were the opposite of Saddam.
Yeah.
So they were doing the exact same thing.
Everybody fighting for control.
But whenever we got everything leveled out, you were saying you could tell that there was some changes. I was fortunate enough to stand on a traffic checkpoint guarding a polling station for the first ever free elections in our
Wow.
And I've stood there, and it's real flat in the area that I was in, and as far as you could see was people lined up waiting to vote. Stood in line literally all day.
Incredible.
They would come out, and I don't remember if it was a thumb or a finger, but they would put an ink mark
Right?
so you could tell who had voted. You couldn't count how many people would coming out of there with that mark on them, hugging you, kissing you. You need water, you need food. What can we do? Thank you so much.
Right. Right. And that's something that we take that for granted in our country. It's always been here the way our forefathers developed this country. And, then we think back, we look at what's going on in politics today and how, man, we have to wait months to get results of an election because it's trying to figure out how can we screw the system. And unfortunately, that's the truth. It's one side or the other is trying to figure out a way to screw the system. And these people, and we've seen it on the news where they come out with that ink mark, and that's not going away. And then you could see, and yeah, we sitting here in the United States, we see what the media lets us see, and that's what's so important. Like talking to you guys saw it firsthand. You got to experience it. And I can't but help but believe that there's a certain amount of pride and satisfaction
Absolutely.
that comes from that because you're turning the world around over there. Now, has it stayed that way? Yeah, there's been some issues, but that's more politics driven on our side in this country, and we're going to deal with that in other series on this podcast. But Clay, you did receive a Purple Heart, and we thank you for your sacrifice. Tell us a little bit, because we're going to get into this story, because it's a pretty cool story. But tell us what happened.
My company had moved out of the main fob where we was in Warhorse and moved into a Iraqi police station out, in our sector of operations. So that way, instead of having to deal with everything on the big base, we're in the community. We got a better reaction time. We've got a better, I believe somebody called it a finger on the pulse of the community. We could do a lot more. So we was there for, I don't know, a week and a half, and got up one morning and there was a firefight going. They were shooting at us up on the roof. So I went up trying to help them out, and would you believe a smart aleck brought a rocket to a gunfight? The only way to explain it is God wasn't done with me yet, because I actually got hit in the back by an RPG, hit in the vest, and it blew up. And
Wow.
I'm still sitting here today.
Wow.
There's no other way to say it than he wasn't done with me yet.
And we are truly blessed that you're here with us today.
Very much.
So one of the things you were telling me on the story was you were hit. You apparently you did have some quiet time as far as being unconscious for a little bit. One thing that really amazed me about the story, and it reminds me of what I see having a little bit of rodeo experience. One thing as cowboys, we said, you're not carrying me out on the stretcher. I'm walking out, and then we'll do this later. And I remember J.B. Mooney telling the story about he was so mad they didn't give him a choice. He was angry with them. And tell us a little bit, you wouldn't let them bring you down off the top of that building in a stretcher.
No, sir. No, and it's kind of funny. It goes back to, I had my bell rung pretty good, obviously. So I can't really explain to you what the rationality was, but they was cutting my britches and stuff off to, check my wounds and bandage everything up, and they went down to cut my boots off, and I threw a fit. Do you will not cut them boots off? It's somewhere in my mind, as long as I had my boots, I was good.
Well, so if you were going to get up and run through the city, were you commando or boxers? Or
at that point, commando.
Okay, well, so at least you'd still have your boots, so you could.
But no, we were on the fourth floor, and those stairwells were real steep. So, you could look at it as I didn't want them to try to carry me down, but in all actuality, I walked up all 4 flights of those stairs. I wanted to walk down all 4.
That's awesome.
And I had 2, good friends of mine, Sergeant Benson and Sergeant Zamora, under each arm, and they let me step every foot on every step going down. And then they put me on the stretcher.
And that was your brothers taking care of your wishes, and that's awesome. That's one of the cool things that I've seen is the camaraderie that comes out of the hunts we do. Everything that we do is you see guys come together, and then the camaraderie is incredible. We talk about team sports, and you play as a team. You guys truly were a team, and you took care of each other. Now, I do know that you were saying that they were cutting up your uniform to make tourniquets, bandages, and everything else to take care of you, and they lit you up pretty good with morphine, and they got you. They got you in the what was it they put you in?
I don't really know what it was. This was back in 06, so they were just starting to come out with all these new fancy M-Raps and Buffaloes and stuff like that, but I don't really know which one it was that they put me in. But I know that along each side of it, we had to kind of go up 2 or 3 stairs to get in it, and along each side was big benches and big windows all up and down the side. And then they had a gunner, kind of up behind the driver and the TC. He had a 50 cal, but you're laying there, and I mean, golly, that thing was huge. I don't know how they picked me up and put me in it. But yeah, they.
So tell us about the ride. I want to get to this. This is the good part. Tell us about the ride.
Well, it was the Air Force is who it was. They were running route recons and route clearance and all that stuff for us. So they loaded me up in there and was headed back to the FOB, to the aid station, and call come in that one of the Iraqi police stations on our way back had got attacked, and one of their guys had got shot, so we were going to pick him up. Well, they were out trying to get him stabilized and loaded up. Of course, they're taking fire while they're trying to do all this. And, I'd had quite a bit of morphine, so all I wanted to do was take a nap. And the old gunner, he kept, every time I'd close my eyes, he'd reach over and kick me in the head. Wake up! Wake up! What are you doing? Wake up! You're bored. I'm going to give you something to do. I thought, you know what? I can't think of a better way if I've got to leave this country, and I just rolled up and stuck my bloody ass on the window. And as funny as that would have been, it gets better than that. The goofballs started shooting at me. I could feel the bullets hitting the window. And that gunner, man, he spins that 50 around and he just starts eating them up. He says, hey, there might be some on the other side. Go to the other side. Oh, I couldn't move to get on the other side, or I absolutely would have tried it. But, I thought, you might have got me. You might be sending me home, but you can kiss my big bloody ass.
There you go.
Oh, man.
Well, we're having fun with those stories, and we get to hear, as a staff, And on hunts, we get to hear a lot of crazy stories. But the truth of the matter is, all of y'all, and Jacob, you've mentioned it on the last session, the PTSD. That is real. We see 22 veterans a day committing suicide. And people just don't quite understand. What is it that, and I'm not asking you to go into dark details, but what is it? What is it that is eating at all of you guys? Jacob, I know what you've been through. Tell us a little bit about what goes on or what went on with you, because you've done a good job of pulling things back together. I'm so impressed with you and so proud of you. I got to know you. I remember the first time I ever met you, I was like, God, this guy's I'm
a smart ass. All right, we'll put it out there.
But once we started working together, it was I saw who you were, but I also saw those dark times. I remember some of the things you went through, and I remember you talking to me. And I remember that day like it was yesterday when you called me to tell me you were heading into rehab, and you were worried that we were going to say adios.
Right.
And that's when I told you that this is about people just like you. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, so we got back from Iraq in 2004. I didn't become sober until this September will be 4 years. The biggest thing really is just you have to want it. And you have to have something that you look forward to. I started the organization, I guess I'm at 6 or 7 years now, I can't remember. Time flies, it's been fun. But talking to other vets and just being able to serve those guys that I feel have done more, like Clay getting shot, guys that are in the firefights. We were doing convoys, right? Everybody's like, y'all had a hard job. I don't think so. And I think that's the mentality of a lot of us military guys is we didn't do enough. And that's one of the things that I struggled with. I'm not going to talk for everybody, is that I wanted to do more. And you see people that are getting hurt. You see people getting killed. And you're like, why couldn't that be me? And you come home and you start reliving those dreams of what I could have done and how could I save somebody or whatever may it be that's eating at you. And alcohol was one of the biggest things for me. That was my coping mechanism. So I thought, right? Come September 11th, 2018, I went out drinking. It's September 11th. I'm a firefighter too, so it's not only on the military side, but just American side, a dark day in our history. And I made it even a darker day on me. Went out drinking, and I decided I was going to commit suicide. But at that time, I had some friends I called as a last resort. And at that time, they came to my rescue. And I think that's what this organization is about too, is we're reaching these guys. We try to reach these guys as much as we can to say, hey, we're here for you. You don't know us yet, but let us take care of you for this time. Let us take you on this hunt where all you got to do is relax, interact with somebody else, learn about everybody, and pull the trigger on something and know that it's okay to pull that trigger. It's okay. You're going to be feeding your family. And the biggest thing is, and then watching these guys do it and being able to relax. I met Clay on a couple hunts. We both guide together and learning about each other and making these contacts with other guys. And I've had other people that have been with the organization call just to talk. And I don't go into why they just talk. But if you want to fill in the blank, you can fill in the blank how you want to. I know the reason is they want to be there because they need somebody.
Right.
And that's been the biggest thing with this organization. It is one of these stepping stones for me to get onto the track of I don't need alcohol. I did what I could, and I'm here to serve my brothers and sisters in arms and their families. And it's just what this organization is amazing. And I just want everybody out there to know that when you sign up for these hunts, we don't pick and choose, but we don't just say because you've been here before, we're going to take you again. We don't do that. You might see people that are on hunts, that's because they're on our standby list. When other vets are like, hey, I can't do this because I have a doctor's appointment, I have surgery or whatever. And we don't shun them. We put them back at the top of the list. We get them out as soon as we can on the next available hunt. Hunts fill up, but we got them on there. So, and it's what it is. It's giving back and letting them know you're not alone.
Right. right. And it's interesting. Clay, I know you deal with TBI, traumatic brain injury, but you give back so much. Both of y'all are on our pro staff, and you've been a vital part of ours. Clay, your big deal's fishing.
Absolutely.
What does fishing do for you? I mean, and I know you like to take veterans out, and if someone calls, you'll drop everything and take them out fishing.
Every time.
What does that do? What is it for you out there?
Well, there's a couple different ways that I go about taking these guys out. The first one is, they don't know how to fish, but they see maybe it's something they'd like to try out. They've got these injuries that they can't go out and play big sports and be around a lot of people. So you're out there on the water, and it doesn't matter what lake you're on or where you're at. You're in your own little world out there. There can be houses and other boats and everything around, and you still have the feeling of being in your own little bubble. But then, I'm a bass fishing guy, love bass fish. And you can focus on every little thing that you're doing. I'm looking for this target, I'm feeling this, or, just pick a noun. And that distracts you from anything you got going on in your mind, gets blanked out, put in the back, and in the front of your mind, everything is focused on what you're doing, and everything else just melts away. It's almost like a meditation, I think is about the best way I can describe it. And you get to take these guys and show them that, and just watch the whole transformation.
Right. I think a lot of it is getting them out of the house, getting them out in that secluded environment where they're not just sitting as any of us. I don't care if it's me or y'all or anybody. If you're sitting secluded, your mind tends to want to run.
Absolutely.
And an idle mind is a devil's.
Idle hands are a devil's.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's when, like Jacob, I think, when you have that too much time to think about it, the bad thoughts come in.
Exactly.
And the demons come in. And, so having something for them to focus on, and I think that's what we've tried to provide at Headwaters for Heroes, is a place for them to take their mind off of those demons. And we've seen great results. Clay, remember you and I coming back from Athens? That was on 9/11, and I got that phone call.
Yep.
And we were stopping to have a meeting with some people on the way back, and I sat outside on the curb till I was done talking to that young man. He was in a very bad place. He lost a lot of his brothers over there, and he needed someone. And the phone rang, and we answered it, and you were sitting there in the truck. I mean, I don't know how long that call went on. We were in the truck. We had him on speaker, and I was watching you as we were driving. You were nodding. I could see the look on your face. And when we got there, and the people were gracious enough to wait on us to meet with them because of what was going on. And just the fact of being there, when that phone rings, just being there. We've seen a lot of these veterans that have told us how it changed their life. And it's not so much that, we gave them the opportunity to be with people that understood each other. I go back to the very beginning when we started with the first veteran. My dad came in with Matt, and at that time, Matt was 21, lost his legs in Afghanistan. My dad was in his 80s. But to hear those two talk, that's when that light went off, and I was like, wow, this is where the true healing is. It's not Steve Sweeney, it's not Donna Sweeney, it's the veterans being together. And it's incredible. And all of y'all have been on events with me. I do my best to stay in the background, burning food and whatnot. But
overcooking the cookies.
Yeah, burning some brownies, making sure Jacob was well stocked in cookies, things like that. But
That's a big task.
I get to watch from afar, so to speak, that I see what goes on out there. And I've seen it time after time after time. And so you guys as staff, Do you have any memories, I mean, that you could, I'm not asking for names, but something that's touched you specifically? And maybe it's not just one thing. Jacob?
I couldn't give you anything. All I'm thinking about right now is we do have a lot of our staff that are prior service, but we also have a great number of our staff that aren't. And having those guys like my buddy Justin Garcia, who helped me do a lot of guiding hunt down at the Santa Cruz Ranch when we had it, just watching him stand back and watch these vets interact, because that's one of our biggest things too is off from the fishing side is they're one-on-one over there. When we get to the hunts, we try to do at least 2 at the minimum, at the maximum 4 guys, right? Because we don't want too many to start branching off.
Right.
And just watching those guys interact, like I said in one of the earlier podcasts, is I don't tell them I'm a veteran, because that focus is not about me, it's about them. And just watching, like you said, watching these guys interact, you've got Marines, you got Army, you got different guys that when we're all together, well, our group's always better than their group. But when they're there talking, it's like, it's a brotherhood. It's showing that America's armed services, we are a brotherhood.
Right.
We're going to stick together no matter what. And just watch these guys talk, it's been amazing. Like Matt Deathridge, I've talked to him a couple times, and just watching these guys succeed in life and then letting them know that, hey, at the end of the day, here's my number. You don't have to use it,
And how many times you sat in a deer blind and there really wasn't much hunting going on? It was more about just talk.
More about talk, and a lot of times it's just sitting there and just letting them enjoy the nature. Like you said, an idle time, but like Clay mentioned it too, is you're focused, right? We're focused we're waiting for that deer, that hog, or whatever to come out. And those guys can just sit there and relax and enjoy it. We take them to the range day 1, because that's one of our rules. We got to get them qualified, let them shoot. And sometimes some of the guys want to shoot more. And I think one of the biggest things too is, as being from the great state of Texas, is we are allowed to carry sidearms, right? But as an organization, we don't allow that for everybody's safety. Our guides do carry, but our guides are very strict on the reasons what they can carry. And I've had times where I've had to tell those veterans, you need to put that pistol away. And that's the hardest thing to do, because this gentleman, this veteran, this woman has fought for the freedom, and now I'm going to take a part of their freedom away from them. But at the end of the day, I have to let them know that, hey, I got your back.
Absolutely.
And that's what it's about. It's about our safety. It's about the rules. And we got you, brother. We don't need that pistol, because we're going to be together. No matter what happens, we're together, and we're going to fight it off. So it's, that's one of the biggest things. So I don't have any. It's just been a lot, and it's been a great ride, and I'm going to stay on that saddle and keep riding.
How about you, Clay? What you got any personal experiences from being as a pro staff?
Too many to mention. But I will say, and this may end up sounding a little selfish, but our motto is soldiers helping soldiers.
Yes, sir.
The greatest thing about being staff, a guide, and anything to do with it is, like me, I got retired and disabled at the age of 26. That is way too young to be retired and disabled. And that is a hard pill to swallow. So whenever you can find something, number one, that you enjoy, as much as I do hunting and fishing, but be able to focus on helping somebody else that was in your position to get out and do stuff. There's no amount of money that can give you the satisfaction of being able to help someone else, because every time you help someone else, it gives your life purpose and meaning and goals, instead of just being stuck in a hole, depressed, and my life's over, ain't nothing I can do anymore, I can't go play baseball or run a foot race. So being able to have someone depend on you, that is huge in a recovery, in a mind frame. So taking these guys out, fishing, hunting, doesn't matter. All of them's great. But knowing what I know about how much it helps me, watching guys like Jacob and others get the same satisfaction and get the same goals, and you're giving yourself respect again.
Absolutely.
There's not words to say what that means to be able to do that. It's a family. The military's a family. Whenever you see your brother down, you help him out. Your sister down, you help her out. It helps you right in return.
Yeah. It's often said that, our military does the greatest job of any military in the world of training you guys. You make us the most badass fighting machine in the world. But they do a crappy job of turning you loose. It's like, thank you and see you later. And I think that's part of the struggle when guys come out.
Well, I'd like to speak on that.
Okay.
I've got quite a bit of experience, not just myself going through it, but watching so many of the other guys and girls that I knew going through it also. I was part of Fort Hood's very first WTU, the Warrior Transition Unit. That was where the wounded guys would, go and get their surgeries and recover and go through their clearing and retire or, medical out, whatever comes. So I would watch these guys. They come home and, they get to where they can get around and move okay. They want out. They want out. They want to go home today. So they get jerked around with their paperwork, say, oh, well, we got to do this and we got to do that. But, if you do this, sign this paper or sign this waiver, well, we can get you out a lot faster. So what do? They sign because they're in that mindset, I just want to go home. I just want away from here. I'm done. There's nothing more I can do, so I'm gone. They'll sign it, and they lose so many benefits by signing those waivers and, clearing final out papers. Me, I was so fortunate. I had a house right there in Killeen. Family was right there. It took them, I got blown up the 25th of November, 06. By the time everything was said and done, it was February 09 before I got everything situated the way it was supposed to be and signed out. And I got all of my benefits. But being able to see, what I was going through, because I wasn't in a rush to go anywhere. My family was right there. Watching these guys do that, it would just break your heart. Because a lot of times, you can't really talk to them. They've got their mind made up. They want to go, 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 go. I wish there was a way, maybe someday they'll set up a course or a class or something to explain to them everything that's going on. But
I think that plays into what I said about they're not transitioned out in the same manner. Like I said, you guys go through extensive training to become what you are, which is the best. But they don't give you that extensive training to build you to be the best when you're not in the military. And I think we fall as a government and as a society, however you want to put it, we fall short of that. And I think if our government, the military, if they did a better job of that, one, I don't think we'd see the suicide rate the way it is. I think it would be a lot less. Because I know a lot of these guys, they're used to that structure. They're used to how things are done in the military. There's a strict structure of how things are done. Yeah, I know you guys got stories about things y'all did that weren't quite within the structure.
I don't know what you're talking about.
There's no statute of limitations on that. But when you get out, a lot of these guys don't seem to be able to cope within the structure there is no structure.
I can tell you a real big deal that I have seen over these, last several years. You come home from deployment, whether you're hurt, whether whatever, your deployment's over and you come back, your time's up, you're out and gone. Well, let's say you were at Fort Hood, first cav, that's where you did all your time, whether it was 2 years or 20 years. As soon as they get back, they drop that paperwork, all right, I'm done, I'm out, retire, whatever. They're gone. As soon as they can drop that paper, as fast as they can get home from a deployment. myself personally, like I said, I didn't have a rush. So I had the time to, what do they call that? Decompress, to slow all the gears down and get into a kind of a normal routine again before I was completely retired. Whereas those guys that come straight back from, running 90 mile an hour every day, all day, to, well, now they're back home, who are they going to talk to?
Yeah.
They're not around any kind of a military anything. I mean, you've been around enough of them, and you back me up on this. You take somebody that just gets out and they go back home, wherever, just nowhere near a military base, and watch them try to talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even, you can't communicate with them because the military vocabulary, all your acronyms and everything else, people just look at you like you're crazy. Well, that starts up to, okay, well, I can't talk to these people, even though they're my friends. Then it goes into, well, if I can't talk about this, how am I going to talk about something that's bothering me?
Absolutely.
Because either A, they don't understand, or B, like I did for years, just scared to death, especially to my family, to tell them, some of the stories that really happened and everything going on, because of, you can see in their eyes, they look at you a little different.
Yeah.
And it just breaks your heart. So they clam up, and then they don't have any of their military brothers around them, and it's a spiral. It's
Right.
a downhill spiral.
Right.
And that's where that answer the phone.
Right.
When that phone rings, it don't matter if it's somebody in California, Hawaii, wherever they're at. Answer the phone.
I think that's the biggest thing about this organization is people out there that know of a Purple Heart, send them our way. We're here to help everybody we can get our hands on. Not gonna say we're gonna solve everything, but if you know that Purple Heart struggling, that veteran struggling, anybody, reach out to Headwaters, get them signed up, let them experience this. We're not, the thing is, like, we don't have an agenda once we get them there to hunt. Our agenda, overall agenda, is for the betterment of that soldier by the time he leaves. But we're going to let them take their time and do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then like that, we get them back, and you'll see, like, myself and Clay and other guys have gone on hunts, and you want to become part of this organization. It's just a meaningful. When Clay's sitting here talking about guys that had nowhere they wanted to get home, is 100% right. Because you get back from deployment, you're like, what do I want to do? I want to go home. I want to go home. You got people that are like Fort Hood, and then they live somewhere else. Let's talk about Steve Sweeney and Matt Dethridge. If it wasn't for you and Donna, there's no telling what Matt Dethridge would have lost in his benefits, because I could see him being from Ohio wanting to go home. But you and Donna were able to help cope with that by getting him the family that y'all became now of him, and helping him realize, hey, just stay here, we got you. And that's the biggest thing too, I think, is a lot of our military stuff is they're not getting reached out to as you're a human being. Let's assign you a family or somebody, like a mentorship, I feel like y'all did, which started this organization, because you saw the light at the end of the day. You saw that light and said, that's exactly what we need to do.
And that's with Matt, it was at another function before Headwaters for Heroes. And his mom, he was there at BAMC recovering, and his mom was down, and she had to go back to Ohio. And her comment was, who's going to take care of my baby boy? So remember, next time you see Matt, call him baby boy. But my wife stepped up, Donna said, we'll take care of him. And that's where the vision became complete. God moves us in many different ways. And there's no doubt that God had a hand in moving this. So, it's been a great ride, and we're a long ways from finishing this ride. So it's just starting. Well, guys, I want to thank y'all for sharing today.
Well, if we've got time, I got one more story.
Let's hear another story.
Clay Carver
I
time.
have got to get this one in. I have an Aunt Phyllis. It is my dad's youngest sister. And she is,
I remember this story.
well, what what can I say other than she's Aunt Phyllis?
We
Love her to death.
all got one.
So I'm getting ready to ship out on my first deployment, you know, and everybody's back home getting to visit one last time. And she catches me and she says, whatever you do whenever they start shooting at you, don't you lay down on your belly and try to hide behind something. Why not? Because that big Carver butt, you'll get shot in the butt. Oh, man, Phyllis, now you've jinxed me. I'm going to be Forrest Gump. Well, I survived that deployment. Make it home, not even a scratch. But I wouldn't dive behind nothing. I would back up against the wall, whatever. Well, it rocks around to the next deployment. And she gets me again. Same thing. I said, there's no way I'm going to make it twice without her jinxing me good. So I'm up on the roof. I get nailed, you know, and I'm kind of coming to, you know, there's a little span of time I can't account for. But anyway, Sergeant Blair comes running up, good friend of mine. Are you hit? Are you hit? Now, mind you, there's smoke and everything everywhere, it's dust. I'm looking at him, are you hit? I said, I think so. And he looks down and then he comes around and he grabs me and he says, dude, they got you in the ass. Phyllis! And she has not let me live it down since.
Well, there's one more story you got to tell.
Uh-oh.
In your truck, you have a stuffed white rhino.
I do. And its name's Billy.
Billy the white rhino.
Well, pretty much every raid we would go on, I was breach guy. I could run through doors like nobody's business. Well, we got to where instead of coming out and going around the block to hit the same house that shares a common wall, all their walls, their cinder blocks ain't nothing but mud and grass. So we got to where we'd back up, we may hit it with a little burst of ammo to soften it up, and I'd turn and dive through that sucker and just crash through the wall. Instead of going out and getting shot at, we're just going house to house through the walls. And our interpreter, his name was Jack, he caught me out, I don't know, about 3/4 of the way through the deployment. He caught me out. He said, hey, Sergeant Carver, you famous? I mean, I'm famous. Well, I got a bounty on me or something? He says, no. He says, everybody out in the community says they call you the White Rhino. I said, why in the world? They said, because they're looking at a wall one minute, and next minute they're looking at a big old white guy running through the wall. Now, I don't have any solid evidence that they actually did that, but I sure like to think it's true.
Well, we're going to believe it's true. We're going to be calling you the white rhino. And on that, we're going to bring this to an end, people. We really appreciate you listening to what we have had to say here. There's going to be many more coming. Y'all have a great day.